in the US would have a variety of topics being discussed, immigration and deportations, the Epstein files, how bad the left is. I think that was brought up a few times, but wasn't really the focus of it. But if you look at America Fest, the Turning Point USA conference that took place a few days ago, it really was mostly about the Jews. And now we talked about this conference on several shows because Ben Shapiro, who spoke second uh, after ARCUK, talked about certain people in the movement that we've been talking about here and called them out on a list of things that they do and should not, and things that rational people should reject. Now, for the next few days, all you heard were responses to Ben Shapiro. And so much of those responses were about Israel. Now, Ben Shapiro did not mention Israel once, but the people responding to him did mention Israel many times. And some of them, their supporters, who you could have caught on some social media posts, in the lobby or wherever, didn't say Israel. They just spoke straight up about Jews. One famous YouTuber was walking around taking pictures with people with a drawing of an oven, saying "Let him cook," which of course means put the Jews in the oven. And big figures in the conservative movement were happy to take a picture with him with that shirt. And yeah, we talked about there was a behind the scenes or somewhere debate between a couple of people whether or not we should allow Nazis into the movement. And one of the people was saying, "Look, they're part of our base." Well, if they're part of your base, there's something so deeply flawed with your movement that it really needs to be either completely abandoned or changed significantly. Welcome to the reality show. I'm Razi Ginsburg, joined by Daniel Kraus, Stuart Margolis, and technically for the first time on the reality show, although he has been on this show's predecessor, the Thursday Collective, which was what we used to call the Daily Objective on Thursdays. We liked that show so much that we made it a daily show. Daniel T. Richards, welcome, Daniel. I'm gonna go to you first. Yeah, your thoughts on any thoughts on the on America Fest and specifically on the obsession so many people there had with the Jews.
Yeah, thanks, Rozzy. It's good to be here. Good to see you all. Good to be back to share some of my thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts, so I'll keep them to a minimum here to start. But for a conference that was labeled America Fest, there wasn't a lot of America to it. There was a lot more Israel, as you were noting. I do think that so much of what we're seeing on the populist right comes from a philosophical identity crisis of like what their actual core beliefs are. I think to be generous to them, if we want to, but I like to examine rhetoric and argumentation and try to find something in there that they're holding on to that might have some bit of coherence and rationality. I think what they're responding to is what they would call like a lack of social coherence or lack of cultural coherence or a declining cultural coherence for America in particular. So for so long, we had this sort of e pluribus unum, our unity, our American identity rested on shared philosophical ideas. When people came here to assimilate, they weren't assimilating to culture and ancestry, they were assimilating to ideas, the founding ideas, in fact. Give me liberty or give me death, individual rights, the Constitution, the stuff that Jefferson wrote in the Declaration. Um, and that was what people were orienting towards. Sometimes the language as well, but not always, or maybe over multiple generations. But over time, that framework has, well, frankly, deteriorated. Many causes and reasons for that deterioration, multiculturalism, cultural relativism, whatever you want to say there. But the founding principles stopped being the standard, and we got this sort of be whoever you want sort of cultural relativism. The result wasn't some utopian pluralism, which was expected, but more of like a deep rot in ideology and a lot of relativism. And so I think the populist right, like many groups, feels that, but they go to the sort of worst, almost simplest, almost folksy explanation for it, which is we're lacking this American heritage, right? This ancestry, which was never a thing here. It's much more not to put any of you down who are in the UK, but much more sort of European in its take. Um, So I think once the explanation for like American identity shifts from ideas to identity, groups that are small, visible, successful, associated with power, like Jews, like the country of Israel, become a really easy symbolic target. And I think the right is looking at the success of the left in doing this and how they rose to power and saying, what's our version of this? So I think that's what they're seeing. They're making obviously the absolute wrong diagnosis for what is happening and the absolute wrong remedy for it. But that's sort of how I'm viewing it from a high level, at least.
Yeah, Stuart. One of the things that I've seen Turning Point accused of, and I think is probably correct, which is uh, they don't really want the Nazis there. I don't think the Turning Point USA leadership wants actual Nazis as part of it, but they have this view that I think is popular among conservatives who claim to be for free speech. This view of free speech as, you have to allow all views equally and so on. And of course, they don't, because you don't see advocates of any popular left-wing ideas being a part of that conference, except the defense of Islam, which we saw from Tucker Carlson. But yeah, at some point, if you do let everybody in, you are giving an opportunity for the worst elements to take over.
Yes, I think that's certainly true, but I think it's more than that and it's worse than that. I think a fundamental problem, Daniel talked about the kind of identity crisis. I think the deeper problem here is that the American right is starting to embrace fascist ideas. And yeah, fascism is broader than Nazism, but Nazism is a fascist ideology. So, in some sense, they are recognizing that kindred nature of the Nazis because they are embracing some of those same horrible ideologies. So, I think that's part of where the reluctance to kick out the Nazis, like, oh yeah, well, no, nobody wants the ugliness of the Nazis. Nobody wants, well, I guess maybe the one guy in that T-shirt wants Jews in the ovens, but I think most of the people at Turning Point, they don't want concentration camps. They don't want mass slaughter that way, but they do want the authoritarianism and the control that the Nazis had and that they advocated. And so they're reluctant to kick out a group that shares those essentially core values.
Yeah, by the way, the guy in the t-shirt was is also has spoken and favorably about Hitler, and he's black. That's another thing there that I think people don't really the extent to which they actually think before they speak is not great, and yet this guy has millions of subscribers to his YouTube channel.
It's
Thank you,
horrifying.
Jonathan, for the super chat. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, Razi, I heard the US is to sanction members of the UK government. That means bank accounts not going to be usable, and Customs and Border Patrol will deny them entry to the US. Sorry, I'm still recovering from that cold, but yeah, I don't know. I don't exactly know what specifically it is. I do think there are some cases that I see this happening, like with Francesca Albanese, and I think, yeah, that should have happened a long time ago. But the way Trump is using this overall, I'm not a fan, and I'm worried how far this will go. Daniel Kraus.
Yeah, I mean, j just quickly on the like black person having the cast them or put them into ovens or whatever. Well, as unfortunate as it is, anti-Semitism among the African American culture is very prominent and has been for a long time. Many of the cultural leaders had many anti-Semitic thoughts. I mean, even specifically. I mean, even you could say somebody like Kanye West, right? When he talks about the black Israelites, like there's a whole like idea about that Judaism was like stolen from black people and that those are the actual chosen people. So there's a lot of like ideology there. But then separately, I mean, again, this is like the achievement of American, I don't know what we wanted to call it, melting pot or like multiculturalism, right? The fact that your biggest neo-Nazi figure is Nick Fuentes, That's the guy who's like the representative of the neo-Nazi movement. And even if you actually meet up with some groypers or talk to them or whatever, you find out that there's an insane amount of minorities among them. There is this like new, or even the general MAGA movement, right? Like Trump himself is winning like record numbers of the Latino vote. Like he's like winning that back for Republicans. So there is something different going on. That's why even like sometimes like going too much into Nazism and trying to compare it too much might be a problem, because fundamentally American fascism will look different. It has to. You have to still work with the American framework to basically still make it work for that specific people. Now, when it comes to the general, the AMFest, I think still the craziest part was the J.D. Vance speech. I mean, I listened to the whole thing, and then even I went to the script and I looked through words on the script. No mention of capitalism, no mention of individual rights, no mention of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Instead, what was mentioned? Nativist ideas. Things like, we need to save our old people. We need to stop funding Ukraine so we can preserve Medicaid. We need to, the biggest achievement of Trump administration, negative net migration. I thought this was about illegal immigration, not about immigration at all. But no, fundamentally, this was always about stopping everybody from coming in, not just illegal immigration. So, and then when it comes to, I agree with the sort of lack of sort of what it means to be American. I think there's like a identity crisis, and even there is like a J.D. Vance like 1.5 minute talk that is like pretty good until the last 5 seconds, because he goes on and it's like, American has to be about something, like we need to find something that unites us together. And he ends with Christianity, like that's our, America is a Christian nation, that's our like unifying thing. Instead of founding fathers' ideals, instead of some other ideals, it's simply religion. And I think the love America plays big into it, right? Because I think the way people look at it is that the Democrats like hate America, and then Republicans love America. And you can see it, right? If somebody has a American flag on their lawn, there is a good chance that you know what his political party affiliation is. And that is, again, unfortunate thing that I have no idea why the Democrats have, well, I know why. I think if you are consistently ideologically on the left, you hate America. That is consistent. But the fact is, with the way current Republicans are going, they are also anti-America, but they still claim the idea of loving America.
Did you really engage seriously with Kanye West's ideas? Didn't we say, it's okay for him to like fish sticks and that's where we're going to leave it?
Well, the Black Israelites, he didn't create that. That's like a long
Well,
term
okay,
thing.
but generally Kanye is not, well, it's not, with others we can say they're evil and we can engage or not engage, but talk about them. But anyway, on a different note, who did talk about, I believe he talked about free markets, was Ben Shapiro in his talk that, people didn't really respond to anything he said. Some of them responded to things he didn't say, but yeah, nobody picked up on the free market point. And Ben Shapiro, you know, going after Candace and Tucker and Megyn Kelly and Steve Bannon and talking some crap at the end and talking about free markets really shows that there are advantages to talking really, really fast. Well done, Ben Shapiro. Do we have any clips that we're going to watch? I know we do. I don't know what they are actually, so surprise us.
Well, it depends, where do you want to start with? Do you have
Um,
any?
Well, the only thing I want to leave to the end, towards the end, is the what's his face, the Andrew Tate wannabe guy. That let's leave to towards the end. If we have anything from Nicki Minaj, let's leave that to the end as well.
Okay, then let's do this one. We'll do this. I think I'll have to skip like 10 seconds forward. But let's listen to the
We're
open.
not seeing any ads of any of these people, right?
No, no, we shouldn't do
Oh,
this one.
this guy.
Thank you. Thank you. We are at war. You know how we know this? You just heard Hawkins up here a few minutes ago, right? What did she say at the very moment Charlie Kirk was assassinated? What, the University of Montana? They laughed in her face, right? Laughed in her face, and some guy goes, oh, we're at war. Charlie Kirk knew we were at war. Every time I've spoken at any event of Turning Point, I always start with that, because Charlie Kirk knew one thing. He knew we were at war, and he knew we were going to be victorious if we didn't quit.
Okay, I don't know how far you want to take this, but yeah.
So we can comment now, and then I want to go at least until the 2-minute mark, because there's one specific thing.
Okay, I'll just say, yeah, a person like Bannon is the kind of person that needs war, because that's what he does, and this is how he riles up a crowd, and he is really one of the most dangerous figures in America. Daniel Richards.
Yeah, I had the displeasure of meeting Mr. Bannon at a party in LA some years ago, Stuart, when I was living out there, part of the conservative libertarian filmmaker circle. And we had a long talk because I said I was an objectivist and he wanted to know about that. What was really interesting to me is I think Bannon sometimes gets painted as being not particularly smart, when I think that is the opposite. He is pretty cunning, actually, and has a pretty long historical understanding. He has a little bit of that, I don't know, Michael Moorish, buffoonish character to him, and he's very awkward in person for sure. But he's quite intellectual and well-read. So I think the danger is true. I do think that it is not shocking, but sort of like eye-rolling to me, like how much he still just lives off of the legacy of Andrew Breitbart. I didn't get a chance to meet Andrew, but in a weird way, he was the person who got me into the world of ideas in a very odd way. I was super into politics when I was younger, and I read Andrew's essay about how politics is downstream of culture, and that was the first time I sort of encountered that idea. But yeah, Steve is boy oh boy, get that man a haircut and some better ideas.
I
But
can't talk about people's hair, but I will say, yeah, the thing that pisses me off most was this guy took Breitbart's name. Breitbart was a good guy, and he took his name and created the monstrosity that Breitbart has now become. And
yes.
yeah, what you associate with that name now is not Andrew Breitbart, unfortunately. In most people, at least, wouldn't associate that. They associate the despicable website that Bannon has created or what he's made of it. Stuart.
Yeah, it reminds me of what the libertarians have done to poor von Mises's name with the von Mises caucus. It's you take someone who, flawed in some ways, but a great thinker or a great person, and just completely corrupt their legacy. Yeah, horrifying. And Bannon, I think, should not, despite him looking like a homeless person, should not be underestimated. He's not stupid. He is dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know who thinks he's stupid, but yeah, he's clearly a very intelligent and very, very dangerous person. Thank you, Sid, for the super chat. Sid says, when Republicans mean America, they mean only right-wing white Americans, excluding all other groups. When Democrats talk America, they mean all groups except right-wing white Americans. First of all, putting all members of either party into one group and saying what they mean, I think is wrong. But yeah, especially in this case with the Republicans, I think it's probably at the moment still unfair to say that, look, this was not a white people only conference, and my problem here is the Democrats, at least the more ideological left, they don't even pretend not to hate America. They're clear about it. On the right, when you see all these Nazis, they claim to be America first, whatever that means, but it clearly doesn't mean America, the idea, because they despise it and want to turn America into what America fought less than a century ago. Daniel Kraus.
Yeah, well, first on the looking like a hobo thing, because I think even people like commenting in the chat, and I really need to look more into this because at this point I'm like wondering if it's like some kind of strategy. Because if I think of all like the behind the scenes like intellectuals, people like Alexander Dugin, people like Steve Bannon, they all look kind of Rasputin, 100 years ago. They all look like evil witch doctors. And they are like actual witch doctors, right? Like that's the thing. And I'm really wondering if maybe I'm just going crazy or this is like some like Matrix things. But I'm wondering if it is like hiding your power level. Oh, this guy looks like ugly bum. I can ignore him. What Daniel said, right? That, people might underestimate him because of that. So I really need to think about this one more. But I mean, like the whole intro is kind of crazy. I don't know. That music like really fits into what kind of person I almost like believe him. It's crazy how well it fits. But specifically what he said, like he stopped. We are at war. At war with who? What does victory look like? What does it mean to defeat the enemies we are fighting? I mean, I assume he means the left, but what does the defeat of the left look like? Just win another election? Get rid of them as an opposition party? And this is what, Ayn Rand talked about when terms are not defined, right? The evil wins when terms are unambiguous, where everybody can agree with, like, everybody, it's easy for everybody in this case on the right to sort of stand behind, we are just fighting the left. Because everybody can put something they want inside of it. For somebody, it might mean, just win another election or, just get certain things through, maybe cut illegal immigration, maybe cut all immigration, maybe have the tariff regime, maybe, have some libertarian ideas, but like everybody can sort of put something in there if they want. So that is what is always the most scary, where you listen to the whole thing and you could say, I mean, I could even agree with everything he said. He didn't necessarily say anything bad. And this is what I think even Trump oftentimes does with the fake news, right? Because we would agree, a lot of media coverage is really bad, especially, we comment on the Israeli-Palestinian issue. Most of the media coverage is really bad. There's really bad ideas. But when somebody like he does it, okay, but are we like, we are not advocating for shutting down the press. We're just criticizing the way it is done. So yeah, that's always the scariest thing. Now, since Mises was mentioned, actually, Phil Turney, the conspiracy theorist around USS Liberty, has recently spoken at a conference a few months ago at Mises Institute. So again, when it comes to the ideas or sort of the names being used wrong, yeah, not the greatest thing.
Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says, Razi, did you know it was LBJ who corrupted the Democrats? I did not, and I'm not sure I know what you mean by that, but if you want to elaborate, Daniel wants to elaborate.
I mean, at least from what I understand specifically about LBJ, what was surprising about him, because he was like a Southern Democrat, but he pushed through an insane amount of like civil rights issue that like wouldn't have been expected. So I'm not sure what specifically you mean by corrupted, but the amount of like agenda he was able to sort of get through. And I think that comes from him being sort of a Southern Democrat. Like you are able to get through much more. But if somebody's more familiar with civil rights era, they might know
The only
more.
other element that I'll add is he was one of the foremost leaders in getting this sort of strong arm party unity where we sort of stifle dissent, everyone gets on the same page, votes the way the president wants you to vote, since the president is the leader of your party. He was sort of at the forefront of that. So those sort of things combined, I'm not sure if that's what they mean by corrupted, but he certainly was largely influential in the sort of modern way that politics is done, both on the right and the left, by the way.
PC follows up by saying they went bad after JFK died. It began the path to Obama. Okay, I mean, yeah. Well, let's talk about what began the not what began the path to Trump, but actually what may have began the path to JD Vance. Really hope I'm wrong on that, and let's see another clip. Or more of the same clip, if we
Yeah,
have.
let's go for like a minute more, I think.
We start with that because Charlie Kirk knew one thing. He knew we were at war, and he knew we were going to be victorious if we didn't quit. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's go back. Do you understand? For the last 10 years, there have been 8 national elections, either primaries, off-year elections where Congress is voted on for the whole nation, or presidential elections. We have won 7 of those 8. This is why they hated Charlie Kirk. It wasn't Charlie Kirk's philosophy or even his debates. Charlie Kirk was a tough person that built a machine that you guys are dedicated to that delivered victories. Let's be specific. Go back to 2015. President Trump, 15-16, wins the primary against all odds. Then in 16, he wins a come from behind, once in a lifetime victory against Hillary Clinton. We lost the 18 midterms because people were leaning on their rakes, and we lost, 35 or 40 House seats, and Nancy Pelosi told us exactly what she was going to do. She impeached Trump and almost brought it all down. President Trump came back, won the primary, right, very easily. Nobody really ran against him. I don't think anybody ran against him. 2020, we won the 2020 election. Is there any dispute on that? If you don't believe that, you don't believe a foundational element of the MAGA movement.
I agree. If you don't believe that, you don't believe a foundational. That's what's terrifying. One of the many things that are terrifying about the MAGA movement. Daniel, Richard.
Boy, oh boy. Yeah, you can see that folksy sort of red meat, I'm a common man sort of ethos that he tries to put on there, Daniel. And I think the clothing is part of that for sure. Where does this all come from? I forget who first put this forward to me. I think it was Randy Barnett in his book, Our Republican Constitution, but I might be misremembering. But he puts forth an argument that the sort of identitarian right was kind of radicalized with the Obamacare losses, in particular when the Supreme Court upheld Obamacare after there was that enormous march in DC, which I was actually a part of when I was there. And then again, when the Supreme Court upheld it in a case later on, when it was a right-wing Supreme Court, when it was controlled by Republican appointees, right? And his argument is essentially that the breaking point was, if we can't win through the right mechanisms, then we just need our own bully. We need our own cudgel in the office. We need our own person who's going to go to bat for us. And when Trump came around, he seemed to be that person. He seemed to be that bully, that person who would not particularly care about working through the system, quote unquote, but simply do what had to be done in order to fight for our side, and not just do what we want, but hurt our enemy. And that became, I think, an underlying part of the MAGA ideology, is we're not actually only going for this positive vision. In fact, they have very little of a positive vision for what they want for the country, but they want to hurt their enemies. And boy, oh boy, is Trump on board with that more than anyone I've ever seen. So I do think it goes next to someone like a J.D. Vance, who is the ideological version of that, which is even more frightening, frankly.
I completely agree. It is way more frightening. I said yesterday on the show, as much as I despise Trump, I've never feared more for the health of a president, because with Trump, I don't know if he's going to wake up tomorrow, and do something that might be right or do something that might be very wrong. With J.D. Vance, I know. Stuart.
The only advantage of a Vance presidency is that he lacks the personal charisma and the sort of cult of personality that has allowed Trump to do so much damage. I think Republicans would be much more fragmented under Vance. And so hopefully, perhaps Vance could not do as much damage as he might like to do. But it's hard to know, and he is a very scary person. I just want to say, I think that while it's tempting to talk about conflicts of ideologies in terms of, a war, I think it's very dangerous to this Bannon's idea. We are at war. War is a very specific thing that is not good. It is not good for, what was that 1960s phrase, that for children and other living things. War is sometimes necessary, but it is a very, very damaging thing to human life and human flourishing. And if we couch this conflict, this ideological conflict, in terms of war, I think it prepares the base, it prepares your people to commit atrocities, to do terrible things, because, well, it's a war. Bad things happen in war. It is not, we are not at war. We still live in a country where we are supposed to settle disputes through persuasion, through legislation, through means other than the use of force. War is force. War is the use of violence. And if we take that metaphor too literally, I think we really set ourselves up for horrific things.
It's a really good point, Stuart. And to tie the metaphor of war with the political victories that he was talking about, the 7 out of 10, is particularly frightening. And it also just occurs to me that they're almost making this the same kind of error that we sometimes hear about World War II and the Great Depression, right? That we went to war and that brought us out of the Depression because war was good for the economy, right? In this case, it seems like, well, war is good for political victories, right? War is good for ideology. And it's almost the same type of error in a weird way. But yeah, really good point.
Yeah, and I think J.D. Vance said at some point something like the enemy is the radical left or something like that. Now, America has actual enemies, which it doesn't seem to acknowledge our enemies. For example, Russia and Qatar. So yeah, that's scary. Again, talking about the election, I have to say, the Democrats, at least historically, talk in very much the same way. I remember, I believe it was Howard Dean introducing Al Gore in 2004 as the president-elect or something like that. So, but yeah, it's terrifying, and it's more terrifying in the case of Trump because he actually tried to do something about it and should not have been allowed to run this past election. Thank you, Ozzy, for the super chat. Ozzy says, did y'all discuss the debate among the right in regard to leaving your town for opportunity versus having the right to live in the town you grew up in? No, but I'm surprised even the fact that that's a debate. What does that mean, have the right? Does it mean a right to a job or to an income without a job? I don't know what that means. If the Republicans who used to pretend to be the party of free markets are having such debates, that's another scary thing that kind of I think was hidden among the anti-Semitism and other scary ideas. Somebody in the chat says, "Oh, anti-Trump, anti-man channel. You have us all figured out." I want to, Daniel Kraus, I want to talk for a second because we've been talking every day for the past week or so about this really depressing conference. There are better conferences out there. One of them is the Irreplaceable Spark Conference, which is coming to Austin, Texas, October 17th and 18th of 2026. Tickets are available now. They are on early bird sale. Many speakers will be announced soon, but we've already announced Linda Cordair, who will be speaking. She spoke at Spark 1. She will speak at Spark 2. Jonathan Hoenig also spoke at Spark 1, will speak at Spark 2. And somebody who didn't speak at Spark 1 and will make his Spark debut, that's Michael Leibowitz. We did put it in the contract that he has to put a shirt on, but he will be there. So should you. Make sure you get your tickets now. All right, Daniel, another clip.
Well, I didn't comment on yet.
Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Well, I would refer to specifically on the super chat, The Divine Right of Stagnation, essay from Ayn Rand. That's exactly what this is about. Now, when it comes to the way, when Steve Bannon says, if you don't believe that we won, meaning the right, or Trump specifically, won 2020 election, you are not MAGA. And I think that's why I think they have to kick out Ben Shapiro out of the movement. The fact is, Ben Shapiro, as he is right now, is not fit, mainly because he despises Trump. He doesn't like Trump. In 2016, he said whatever but Trump. Right after 2020 election, on January 6th, this was on January 6th when it happened. Ben Shapiro did the show day after called The Worst Day in Modern American Political History, where he said it was absolutely horrific on every possible level. What we saw yesterday is inexcusable, unjustifiable, awful on every level, disgusting on every level, just terrible. They are rioters, they are not protesters. If you are a criminal, you are a criminal and you should go to jail. You should go to jail, no matter what is the perspective of rioters. Because he thought, okay, with this, Trump is gone. He tried to overturn an election. There is no way he's coming back. Trump, of course, came back, and Ben Shapiro has again a problem. Either become a never Trumper, which right now you means you are not even on the right. You're not Republican. Like if you are, and I said this, like Dick Cheney. I mean, he died already, but he wasn't a Republican by the time he died. And her daughter Liz Cheney absolutely isn't. So you I think this is why they have to get rid of Ben Shapiro, because he is not a devout supporter of Trump. He is not support no matter what. I think this is what at least Steve Bannon's view of Republican Party needs. Somebody who will support him no matter what. That's, I think, the necessary thing to move forward.
Quickly before we go to the next clip, thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says, JFK planned to remove him, LBJ, from the ticket in 1964. It's believed the two men disliked each other. And then later said somewhere that, I'm missing it now, but somewhere that JFK was the last good Democrat president. I don't know about good. I don't like using that word about any politician. But Clinton... remember, Clinton was like the Megyn Kelly of presidents, and that he wanted to be popular. It was a popularity contest for him. So he was very left-wing in the first 2 years, or more left-wing in the first 2 years. Then he lost the midterms, and then he was, the closest to good, I think, that we've had since from either party. All right.
Yeah, just quickly, because somebody says Shapiro saw highly edited version of January 6th. I think after January 6th, like years after, the argument against it is even stronger. Like the day off, I think the argument for why it was a problem was the weakest. I think as the years went on, because we only find out about the whole scheme, that there was a whole scheme to basically overturn the election. We only find out about that later. So I think the argument against it got later as it went on, rather than, although of course, like seeing it on the day itself, I think would be horrifying, like even more. But I think when you have the full context of everything that happened, I think it only got worse. Now, what do you want to do? Do you want to? We don't have much time. Do you want to go to the boy who asked the questions?
Sure, fine.
Okay, but you have to give me a second. And this is not fully cut. We have 2 clips of this, but you're muted.
Yeah, just to set up the context. Oh, yeah. Oh, you have the clip of him asking a question.
No. We want the other one, right?
This is the kid who asked Ben Shapiro the question about the USS Liberty and was standing there looking smug. And then he apparently he just set up his X account afterwards and posted this.
Ben Shapiro lied. He said that the USS Liberty incident was an accident. Israel accidentally bombed the USS Liberty. Let's talk about it. The American flag was flying on that ship. When it got shot down the first time, they replaced it, signifying we are Americans, signaling the Israelis to stop their attack. They continued it anyways. On top of that, on the side of the ship, the name USS Liberty and the hull number were clearly delineated. There was no mistaking that that was an American ship. There was, we got stuff going on. There was it was a very clear day. There was perfect weather. You could tell from miles and miles away. It was an American ship, American flag, USS Liberty name, whole number on the side. They knew what it was, and they continue the barrage.
All right. This asshole talks for 4 minutes, and we don't have to hear the whole thing. But Daniel, do you want to show us the later on part of it?
Also, shout out to Phil Turney, USS Liberty survivor, defended me publicly on Instagram. If you don't believe what I'm saying about the flag, about the name USS Liberty and the whole number on the side of the ship, about the lifeboats that were shot down in the water by Israel, then go listen to Phil Turney, an actual survivor.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to. Yeah. If you don't believe me, listen to Phil Turney. We just did listen to Phil Turney. None of this came from this kid, and he's literally repeating point by point everything by Phil Turney, all of which has been completely debunked. We've covered it on the channel a couple of times, including 2 days ago, where we went through some of Phil Turney's debate with Cam Higbee, where Phil Turney on the spot can't decide whether it was 2 planes or 30 planes, said with absolute authority that those planes could carry 4 missiles, and it turns out it was 50 something. Yeah, this guy can't even get his own, Phil Turney can't even get his own lies straight, and he's made an entire career for 60 years on those lies. So it's scary to me, Daniel, that this is the next generation of conservative leaders.
Yeah, right into that conspiracy theory thinking automatically, which is part of that replacing identity thinking with causal thinking. Look, admittedly, I'm not a historian. I don't know a ton about the USS Liberty incident. But the bit I've read about it, it can be several things at once. And to me, it might represent, say, a failure of transparency or of government communication or something like that. But it becomes really, really dangerous to treat an incident like this as proof of some collective guilt rather than in a case study about governments protecting alliances and managing embarrassment, which we can sort of all agree governments need to be better about. But it's just bad causal thinking, and that's the scary part to me about it.
Yeah, and again, what Phil Turney, his main point was that Johnson was in on it, and they wanted to start World War III, which oddly enough didn't start. And again, Johnson, if he wanted World War III, could have made it happen in any way possible. And yeah, a lot of these the bits and pieces of Phil Turney, the whole thing really falls apart when you ask questions. The people who have him on never ask questions. The one time he debated was with Cam Higbee. Again, it's 90 minutes of pure gold. I recommend watching that. Cam Higbee a few days ago posted a 10-minute clip of what is probably the best part of it. So if you don't have 90 minutes, watch those 10. Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the youth in the movement are not encouraging. I don't see anyone in the Republican Party anymore, other than perhaps Ben Shapiro, who's about to be kicked out, talking about free market ideas, individual rights, any of the things that might have made the Republicans a better party to support in the past. Those they've abandoned virtually every good idea that was sort of at least given lip service by the Republican Party. And I think they're gradually becoming just sort of the neo-fascist party. It's horrible to think that, but that's what seems to be happening. This idea that never mind the evidence. If you want to be part of the tribe, you have to believe this particular fantasy that we've created about the 2020 election, and the conspiracy thinking, and I mean, it's appalling. The movement, if MAGA movement, has just, in my opinion, has just destroyed the conservatives in America. There's the good ones have either been silenced or left.
Somebody in the chat says, even if the Jews did it, what has it got to do with me? I was born in the 80s. If it's my fault and war it is. I mean, look, first of all, of course, if it If it was what they claim it is, it's completely irrelevant today, but it's not what they claim it is. And that's a thing, if you go claim by claim that anti-Semites have about what Jews are doing and how they're controlling the world, and say, well, even if this is true, that you can say that about a lot of things. The Epstein was a Mossad agent thing. I'm struggling to understand how is, who that accusation is against, if that were true. Do people understand how intelligence agencies work? Like, if Osama bin Laden is killed in the mountains in Pakistan, it's not because he, put a large sign like on his roof and the satellite caught it. Somebody somewhere, some terrorist is being paid by us because we want to catch the bigger terrorist. Yeah, intelligence agencies deal with bad people, but of course there is zero evidence for it. And if you look at the last couple of days with all the pictures that have been released, one that's making the rounds is a picture of an IDF T-shirt, which you can buy anywhere, and which I guarantee you, no Mossad agent anywhere in the world has an IDF T-shirt. And if you think that, you clearly don't understand what Mossad does. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, again, specifically, I mean, I don't know how much we still want to talk about the US at Liberty incident. I mean, one thing that interesting that I've seen that so in America, under the Freedom of Information Act, any citizen, or I think any even person, not even citizen, can basically request an information from agency, email, something that the government has. But apparently the backlog with agencies like FBI is like years right now, that if you ask for something, it will take them years to come out. So yeah, when it comes to government transparency, it can definitely be improved, which again, you solve by providing more funding, not getting rid of it with those specific things, if again that is an important part of what we want to see. Now I mean, how much time do we have? I'll just give a funny story about the false flag attack. Funny story, because people, and it's not surprising. Like, thankfully, because of modern civilization, very few people have actually had to be in war. Very few people actually had to deal with, being a ground trooper or something like that, or being IDF soldier having to go through buildings. And the story we've covered a few years ago, where IDF soldiers had actually shot and killed hostages, which was again a tragic event. Again, experience from me playing games, right? I don't know if you guys are big like video games fan, but have any of you ever heard of a game Escape from Tarkov? I assume not. Okay. So in most games, there are things to prevent you from friendly fire. Either you have a minimap where you see where your friends are, or you are not even able to like shoot your people and things like that. With Escape from Tarkov, it got rid of all of that. There is no information you have on the screen. You are thrown on a map. You have nothing, and you basically are going. So me and my friend were going somewhere. Now, this was the situation. We were talking on a radio directly. We entered the same location at the same time and just split apart. We had armband to basically tell us each other apart from like random other people. Still, when I saw him, I shot him because I had no idea like where he was specifically. I was scared for my life. Now, again, it's a game. It's much different in real life. But again, imagine being in that situation. Like, what if that was an Egyptian ship? The fact was that the IDF didn't know that a neutral ship was suddenly there. What if it was an Egyptian ship, and because of IDF was scared to attack, wasn't unsure, it didn't, and then that it was a 6-day war. The 6-day wars were wrapping up. That could have easily, if it was an Egyptian ship, make the 6-day war into possibly even what? Destruction of Israel? Like, that's what we are talking about. Israel was possibly getting wiped out. That's why it had to do a preventive war. It was very successful and very able, but what if something else happens? So trying to act with hindsight, what, 50, 60 years later, even if with all the information. Now, specifically with the flag, what I read apparently about that specifically is that there was a small flag that IDF simply didn't see. IDF did know American ship was somewhere there the day off, but Later, it was somewhere else. They weren't sure. Then they put a different flag that was bigger, but when that different bigger flag was there, it was already, napalm was all over the place. You had smoke, you had everything. They couldn't identify it. But again, and we have, and again, this came from the released files. This is not Hebrew or like IDF releasing files about what has happened. This is America, what it intercepted from the pilots and releasing that. And we have the audio recordings of them when they realized it was an American ship, and it was immediately stopped because they didn't want to attack American ship.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to say America is controlled by Israel, then anything that comes from Israel is dismissed, but anything that comes from America that is defensive of Israel will also be dismissed. Yeah, none of it adds up, but the target audience of conspiracy theories are people who don't need things to add up. Do we have any more clips?
Well, okay, Nicki Minaj, if we want to still play that.
You
You asked for it. You wanted me
let's
to
do it.
like. Okay, I don't know why we had to. I didn't give consent to having to cut this out. This was, which one do we play for? I think this one we play first.
We won't be silenced ever again. We will speak up for Christians wherever they are in this world. Amen.
Now we want to play the other one.
Sure. I don't know what you got for the other one, but let's play it.
Again, this was Razi asking me for some reason. I have to mute it because it would get us copyrighted.
All right. I thought it would be worse. I did mention that I'm not that familiar, but yeah, it's I'm not a Christian theologian. I don't know what counts or what doesn't count, but yeah, there was something sinister in there as well. They're not going to silence us. Who's not going to silence us? Good question, Daniel.
Also, when were they silenced? I feel like
Yeah.
not in my lifetime have Christians been silenced in the United States. They're pretty loud, and some of them obnoxiously so. But good to see that the right wing is getting celebrities again. Let's go back to the days when the right was the ones who had Reagan and Sinatra and whatever. I miss those days. Quaint. Those days were quaint.
Well, Rob Schneider spoke at the conference, and I
Yeah.
preferred him to whatever Nicki Minaj was doing.
I was trying to draw
but
that distinction between Frank Sinatra, Ronald Reagan, and a Nicki Minaj. Maybe I was a little too
yeah,
subtle.
but maybe I'm just I don't understand youth culture. Stuart.
Again, just quickly, I reject this youth culture. Nicki Minaj is millennial, first of all, and she's speaking to millennials. Don't throw her at me. And also, I think she has like decent music. I don't want to like attack Nicki Minaj fans. That's why I didn't even want to do this, because it's like such a art is personal.
All right, you can. Yeah, Stuart.
I'm not a particular Nicki Minaj fan, and certainly I'm not going to become one based on this. Yeah, the right loves to create this mythos that they are persecuted for being Christian, and how many times has Trump said, you can say Merry Christmas again. I have never heard anyone persecuted for wishing someone else a Merry Christmas. It's this whole idea that Christians are persecuted, that there's a war on Christmas. They've created this fantasy. It's bizarre, but it seems to work. It seems to appeal to the base and gives them the sense of being persecuted. They're not. I'm sorry, not in this country. They certainly are in some parts of the world, but not in this country, and not in Israel.
Yeah. Well, I think the place where Tucker Carlson recently bought a home is not particularly fond of Christians.
No, true.
Daniel, your defense of Nicki Minaj and your generation, if possible.
Again, I'm
No,
Gen
other
Z.
Daniel. Oh,
I'm Gen Z. I do not claim her because she's millennial. And then again, I would say, art is a very personal thing. I would generally not sort of put somebody on a cross for it's a very personal thing. It's hard to, like, if you listen to my music, I think many people might be surprised, but I find a lot of values from certain things there. So generally I really dislike criticizing people for the art they consume, unless it's like really nihilistic or like really kind of anti-life. But generally I find that there is a lot of art that I think people can get out of.
Okay, and let me just clarify with those two clips. I'm a big fan of scantily clad women. I just struggle to understand how it works with Christianity, but also my problem with Christians is not the hypocrisy, at least not my main.
It's the worst
If you're
part.
going to be religious in any way, yeah, don't apply it fully, and we're all better off.
Oh, I'll since we mentioned Christianity, I'll connect that a little bit to Steve Bannon, because even the sort of the way like Mother Teresa is shown, like she's always shown as like, I mean, kind of disgusting, right? And that is like a virtue in Christianity. And I'm wondering if also that plays like a role in Steve Bannon and sort of like that kind of look. If it is that, like, Christian beauty is in ugliness.
And for more on that from Daniel, check out his upcoming article on our Substack. I'm not going to say the title, Daniel, because it will piss people off. They need to read the whole thing with the title. Otherwise, we're going to lose the audience. Daniel Richards, parting thoughts, and where can people find you?
Earlier it occurred to me that we sometimes we hear the phrase woke rights, but the sort of blame of Jewish people for everything to me is almost like a critical theory of the right, which is they have the conclusion, then they imply the evidence in order to suggest it, sort of the opposite of thinking in many ways, certainly causal thinking. But appreciate being on here. Appreciate all of your voices. It was fun. You can find me on Twitter at Daniel T. Richards. Don't forget the T. It stands for Tiberius. It's very important. Yeah.
Stuart, parting thoughts, and where can people find you?
You can find me in my Substack, stuartmargolis.substack.com, and also on my Facebook. And the one point that I wanted to make in terms of the obsession that showed up at this conference about Israel, I think part of it is also the larger isolationism that I think is taking over the MAGA movement. And I think part of what they don't like about America's involvement with Israel is that it's involvement. It's America participating in another part of the world far away. And I think there's this whole movement that America should just be insular and not worried about what's going on in Ukraine or Israel or anywhere. It just should be all USA, USA. It's obviously much bigger than that, but I think that is at least a part of it. And I didn't get a chance to say that, so now I did.
One more thing I will throw, because I've seen a new conspiracy that apparently Jewish Christmas songwriters are writing Christmas songs without the mention of Jesus to get rid of the Christian influence on Christmas.
Is that your parting thought, or do you have anything to add, and where can people find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Dan, and yes, ARCUK Substack if it comes out.
I am Razi Ginsburg on X. Tomorrow on the Daily, James Valiant has been unavailable the last couple of days. When he is, we will do that episode about Megyn Kelly. For some reason, whenever we're about to talk about her, stuff comes up. I don't know what it is she's controlling in the world, but yeah, she will get hers on this channel. Tomorrow, the reality show is about Wikipedia and the growing amount of bias. We're going to talk about John Stossel's recent video. Friday, I believe we're talking about Dave Chappelle, right, on the reality show. And that's going to be fun. All right. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, guys, for joining me on the panel. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We're back tomorrow with the Daily Objective and the reality show.